Well, so today we'll be going to Zurich. Zurich is in Switzerland. We're part of the delegation that government is sending to meet FIFA.
We are?
Hey,
You have
part
not
of the
heard?
delegation?
Yeah.
Ah.
you can send us places without our knowledge.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Sure.
But here's what I know. Good morning, Saya.
Good morning. How are you?
Hello, good morning.
I'm good.
Oh,
I'm
gosh.
good. It's a Thursday, right?
Yeah.
So
I love the situation
did tell
you have going on there.
Thank you. I like the way you describe it. It's a situation. So on Thursdays and Fridays, I rock Ajuayeboa clothing. But the fabric, of course, from Woodine Lecreter. Yeah. So if you want to get in touch with Ajuayeboa, her number will be on the screen shortly. But you can check out. She's got lots of designs. Just go to her Instagram page and her Facebook page as well and explore. But make sure you call her.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Thursdays, what do you rock?
Thursdays.
What do you rock on Thursdays?
This one is Ellis Couture.
That's right.
She sold it, Tema. This one to the same. Breast kerchief, everything.
Breast kerchief. Love it.
Ellis Couture beats. Oh, baby,
Really?
I see.
Don't. Serious.
Ellis Couture.
Let's do the newspapers. I beg.
Those of you who are couture,
Oh my God.
Couture. Charlie, hey, what's the capitalize about it? Why a consolidation?
a lot of things have been capitalized and consolidated. The Business and Financial Times has these headlines, and I'll be talking to you about one of them in a minute. But here's a big one. Mobile money accounts outstrip the population.
What does it mean?
That means there are now more mobile money accounts in Ghana than there are Ghanaians.
Oh.
Okay. So, and the figure has grown exponentially over the past year. Okay. So, in the first half of 2017, we had quite some detailed, interesting numbers, but we've grown by 24.29%. Okay. So, at the moment, the number of active users, which is different from the number of accounts, okay? But the number, let me start with the number of accounts. I believe at the moment we have, oh gosh, where's the number? It disappeared from sight. But basically more than the population of Ghana, okay?
Yeah.
But the active users, that's the important number. And in 2017, there were 9.5 million active users, and it has increased by 25%, 24.29% to 11.8 million. But guess the value of mobile
Money
transactions.
That's the utilization.
Yeah. For the first half of this year alone, 104.6 billion.
Oh wow,
Ghana
that's a
cedis.
lot.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Now, what this means is
Is
that
it the value? I think it's the transactions that go away.
the value of the yes, the amount of money that has been sent around.
Wow.
But as you
How
can
do I
well
go through
imagine,
the banks like that?
oh no way, banks can't compare to this. And to be honest, at the moment there are more mobile money accounts than there are bank accounts. Okay, and obviously the government is interested in bringing in the unbanked, okay, and regularizing them just for the purpose of not only of tax collection, but also of understanding data and just tracking people and so forth. But you can imagine the government will start looking quite enviously at this number and starting to figure out whether or not they can tax it. Just a 1% tax on this will give you, if it's 104 billion for the first half of the year. If you tax that 1%, that will give you 1 billion. Okay, so you could potentially be getting 2 billion cedis automatically just by taxing mobile money 1%. Okay, people obviously don't want this to happen.
No
Nobody
way.
likes to pay tax.
No way.
But
We're already paying a lot.
But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, if the government waits maybe 1 year and then taxes mobile money, will anybody stop using it because of the tax?
No.
If it becomes expensive for me to use,
What is the
when I realize
alternative?
when I realize the deductions are a bit too much, I probably would stop.
Let's imagine 1%. Okay. What would you do instead of using mobile money?
When I get there, we'll see. what we're doing before.
Yeah.
Before, you know.
I don't know whether human beings are wired to go backwards in convenience. Once you make somebody comfortable, I don't know if they will willingly make themselves uncomfortable as a result.
We'll see.
How do you send money?
We'll see.
You know, you've gone and, you know, sewn your dress or whatever. They have to deliver it to you for you to come on TV, and the person needs her money. Otherwise, she won't send you the dress. You're sitting there with your phone in your hand. You have mobile money accounts, and you're saying that because of 1%, you won't pay the woman and get your dress. I wonder.
You know, I'm glad government is not thinking, okay, well, I was going to say not thinking like you, but there's a related story in the Daily Dispatch that says mobile money tax may happen in future, but it's in quotes. Government
it's attractive to government.
So Kweku Kwarteng has been speaking on this subject, apparently.
Now, let me mention this other story, and then I'll be done with the Business and Financial Times. Parliament summons Bank of Ghana and Ministry of Finance. 3-day probe into banking crisis begins on the 5th of September. So we all heard this news yesterday. The Finance Committee of Parliament are going to schedule a 3-day hearing with the Bank of Ghana and the Ministry of Finance. Okay, it doesn't say here whether they will be calling any of the directors or former directors or shareholders of the collapsed banks, but they will be calling Bank of Ghana officials and officials of the Ministry of Finance. But they plan to hold these hearings in camera. We've been asking people what they think about this. We'll hear from them later. But I wonder, what do you two think about that?
What's the point in doing an in-camera setting?
For me, I don't ascribe to an in-camera hearing because whatever has transpired so far and the revelations per what the content of the reports have been over the last 2 weeks, I believe,
out there
have been public. Besides, my argument is those who are most affected are deposited, are depositors, who are customers. They are the public people who need to know what has transpired. Indeed, if the Bank of Ghana had been transparent, and since it got to know about some of these building up of the crisis 4 to 5 years ago, we wouldn't have been where we are. Because even one of the things that have been shrouded, for which the media and the public keep speculating about, is what has happened to the officials and the Department of Supervision of the Bank of Ghana, which had noticed the
press release yesterday.
Yes, until they had, because they were compelled to come with that press release.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree.
Should I tell you what I think? Should I tell you what I think?
What do you think?
All right then. So, like you, I don't like the idea of an in-camera hearing. I know I'm not alone. There are many people I've been communicating with over the evening who have been suggesting that, oh, maybe this is just an opportunity for Parliament to also go and sit and get their share, negotiate their share.
Some promotion.
Indeed. But I don't know about that. What I do know is that I haven't yet decided whether I even want Parliament to look into this. I'll tell you why. Because you see, these parliamentarians will go and sit for 3 days, and it is our same taxpayers' money, of which 8 billion is being used to bail out these banks. It's that same money that will be used to pay these people to sit for 3 days. Now, I want to draw your attention to Articles 279 and Article 155. Article 279 gives Parliament the powers of a High Court. Okay, so essentially, these people will come and sit there, especially Bank of Ghana officials, and by the end of this process, I wonder whether if there is any legal, as in normal court proceedings, that perhaps might have been planned against officials of Bank of Ghana who caused this collapse, whether those proceedings might be frustrated by the fact that this has already been heard in Parliament. Don't forget, Article 155 says that evidence gathered from hearings in Parliament cannot be used as evidence in a case in court. Okay, so could this actually be perhaps something that might end up frustrating any other legal proceedings that might be planned for especially officials of the Bank of Ghana and by extension the Finance Ministry? I don't know yet whether I'm even interested in the idea of Parliament looking into this at that level.
We'll see what happens, but let's follow that up quickly with the Daily Dispatch, because there's a related story in the Dispatch newspaper. And then we talked about the press release from the Bank of Ghana, so we'll show that to you and read it to you. But the Daily Dispatch newspaper, front page, EIU on 2020 elections, struggling to fulfill promise, hit by serious infighting. In-depth details about Ghana's population. 91 political parties to contest Nigeria's 2019 elections. There's a pictorial tribute to J.H. Mensah in the paper today. But this story about the mobile money tax, paper says government appears to have shelved its plans to tax mobile money transactions by deferring it. So according to a Deputy Minister of Finance, Kweku Kwarteng, quotes, government has not made a decision in the coming budget to impose additional taxes on mobile money, as has been suggested, on quotes. The idea of taxing mobile money transactions was first suggested by the Communications Minister Esla Owusu-Ekofo during her vetting in February 2017, where she said it may not be a bad option to generate revenue for government. All right, so it continues. You can read on in the paper today. But let's quickly do the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Front page of the Times, education infrastructure challenges. Government says we will fix it with $1.5 billion. Business community kicks against implementation of CTN system. Prosecute corporates involved in financial sector scandals. That's a call by Occupy Ghana. Police arrest 4 Kandahar boys as hospital staff lay down tools. But later in the evening yesterday, we heard that they had been released. JB Dankwa murder case adjourned to September 19. I'll tell you about comments that the judge made in this last sitting. Okay, so let's do that story actually on JB Dankwa. It says an Accra District Magistrate Court has adjourned to September 19 the case in which a former Member of Parliament for Abuakwa North, Joseph Abuache Dankwa Edu, was allegedly murdered. The prosecutor, Deputy Superintendent of Police George Amaga, told the court yesterday that police has forwarded a review docket on the accused, Daniel Esiedu and Vincent Bosu, to the Attorney General to conduct committal proceedings. And then it says that on July 26, 2018, the presiding magistrates, Ms. Aritz Nsemo, expressed disgust at the way the police was handling the case. Aritz Nsemo, I hope I got the name correct. Nsemoh.
I thought you were trying to say Alice.
No. Aritz is A-R-I-T. So I may have gotten the pronunciation wrong. Please forgive me. So yeah, it tells you about how the case went down, but this has obviously been really, really slow, keeps adjourning every now and then. So that's the updates in the Ghanaian Times
It's a big worry,
newspaper.
you know. The family of the victim must be quite anxious for an outcome.
Absolutely. Even the constituents. Medical student in trouble for practicing as doctor without license. Socrates Theodore Atsieko, a medical student, has been put before an Accra Circuit Court for practicing as a medical doctor without license. He pleaded not guilty to the charge of willfully and falsely using the title doctor without being registered as a doctor, receiving payment for the practice of medicine and providing services at an unlicensed facility.
This is worrisome.
Yeah.
You know, it seems a crime that is on the rise. I don't think it's been more than 3 months since I last heard of such a thing.
Somebody practicing without being...
And you see, we're very trusting as people, not just Ghanaians, human beings. We're very trusting. Someone turns up in a lab coat, we imagine that they are,
the white one. You see one who looks like a doctor.
Doctor. So we're very trusting, and that puts us in grave danger. You know, can you imagine when I interviewed the lady who went to Dr. the Obingfo clinic? And by the way, Dr. Obing is a doctor. But I asked her whether or not she checked to see whether he's licensed to do cosmetic surgery. And she said no. She assumed that he was. She had heard his adverts for years on the radio. So her assumption was that he knew what he was doing. And she never questioned for a minute. You know, and that's how we all are. You know, we are very trusting of people who appear in authority. If you wear the right clothes, people will do whatever you tell them. It's worrisome.
There's also the story, one arrested in connection with shooting of 4 policemen at Dansoman. Back page, let's check it out quickly. Balance population growth with economic development. That's a call by the National Population Council. AMA launches a Breathe Life campaign to reduce air pollution. You might want to read about what this Breathe Life campaign is all about. It's on the back page of the Ghanaian Times.
All right, let me do the Business and Financial Times. It says SDGs health sector indicted for not mapping targets. We're always guilty for many things, and this story talks about how we're not able to meet some health infrastructure needs, etc., etc. But the main story there is the Business Finder newspaper. So we have the Bank of Ghana setting up an office to probe staff, and apparently we've been talking about this, and now they say they've set up an office. You know, the Bank of Ghana, I think many central banks around the world, the way they operate is always cloaked in some kind of you know, independence, and so it becomes quite difficult trying to know what really they do unless they come out to be transparent, etc. And we're hoping that it will be for the benefit of the institution in itself. But it's all about the leadership of the Bank of Ghana. Once we know that we have a vibrant Bank of Ghana governor, at least it helps in the whole process. And Dr. Addison seemed to be showing the way in respect of many of the things. But up there, we're told inflation has dropped to 9.6%. And if you do a cursory analysis of what the comments on social media have been, especially on Facebook, Twitter, etc., inflation basically just giving you an indication of what the trend averagely of prices of goods and services are. And on the markets, the prices of goods and services seem to be inching up, have been inching up over the last year, but inflation also seems to be going down. So, you know, sometimes we just have to do some synchronization or realignment of what the indicators are, because they use various indicators of benchmarks in calculating inflation. There are various benchmarks in the baskets that are used. It could be non-food or food inflation and other miscellaneous goods and services. So, well, let me just apprise you of all that this morning. So basically, those will be the issues in the paper, the Business Finder. But let's do the Daily Statesman, then that'll be it for the newspapers I'm looking at. We have 8 billion Ghana cedi banking scam. How these men, that's a Statesman, the Daily Statesman newspaper, how these men failed Ghana. You have pictures of former governor of the Bank of Ghana. I know the issues have been politicized, etc. So Dr. Abdul Nashiru Isahaku, former governor. We also have former finance minister Seth Tekpe, Henry Wampa, Dr. Henry Wampa, former governor, and all that. There's also a story about a professor telling the Anglican Church to stop praying for the dead.
Okay.
And he has a picture of the Right Reverend Dr. Festus Yeboah Ishiama.
They might have to kick that request back up to Queen Elizabeth, who's still the head of the Anglican Church, last time I checked.
You know.
All right, Daily Guide, shall I do that quickly? Amido's office picks chairman. And I don't know why I'm particularly pleased about this story. Linda Ofori-Tafo of the Ghana Integrity Initiative has been picked as the chairperson.
She's an acquaintance or your friend?
No, it's just because of the role she plays. You know,
it's come up again.
Yeah,
it came up when she was first appointed to be on the board.
Yes, I
and now
interviewed
she
her
chairs.
then, and she suggested that she wouldn't say no if that.
But is it wrong?
She's full-time
executive.
Is it executive director position? She actually heads the local chapter of Transparency International in Ghana. So that's the challenge.
Is that a challenge?
Well, some people say, I mean, that's the criticism. Let me not outrightly say it's a challenge. That's the criticism, that how can you effectively work?
Lead a think tank that is...
Exactly. Yeah. That's also supposed to be critical of the work of, for instance, the special prosecutor.
Yeah. And I have no doubt that at some point we will have an opportunity to test whether or not this is a complication. You know, when if something happens that attracts criticism, it will be interesting to see how
it does look
she plays
like that, though.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, if you look at the way the special prosecutor is going to work, per what the law states about how it was established and how it's supposed to work, I don't know, there could be some point in time in which there's an issue that maybe a certain body or group or individuals within the populations will seem to think it has not been well investigated and prosecuted. And
in such a situation, what would be her responsibility?
as head?
Her responsibility, because her position is just what we want, what we would like to know. Okay, we would like to know her position, but does she have to tell you her position? She's the executive director.
You mean position
on which such a matter, if such a matter comes
on
up.
which side, as chair
Exactly.
or as anti-corruption head?
The point is, whether as chair or as anti-corruption head, you can fight corruption without opening your mouth, right? So I don't think her role is to talk about everything.
I think basically
as part of the board, you mean?
No,
or
even as
from the think tank.
From the think tank side, it is not always by talking that Transparency International fights corruption. They can issue statements. They can hold.
That's talking.
They can hold.
That's more advocacy, isn't it?
So
yes,
I guess the
but
other question:
nothing
how
stops
does
her
she
from doing those things and still holding the position as chair of the.
How do you separate? How do you separate the two?
The funny
Linda
thing is,
Ofori-Kwafo as chairperson or the chair of the board of the special prosecutor.
So the funny thing is, if that office was working properly, there wouldn't be a need to separate the two. They would both be doing this, working towards the same goal. Okay, the office of the special prosecutor is supposed to be fighting corruption. Ghana Transparency International is supposed to be fighting corruption.
So you're saying,
so in theory, and that is actually the reason why.
So you're saying it's a quasi amalgamation.
No,
no,
not at all. You see, that is the reason why she is actually appointed to the board, because the law says someone from civil society, anti-corruption civil society, must be on the board, because they expect the two organizations to be fighting towards the same goal. So normally, in theory, there should never be a conflict. They should be trying to do the same thing. However, we know Ghana, and we know that one day people will raise some questions, some objections.
Things will happen.
You know, we know. I think I'll add to that and say that we know Ghana. When you get critical, that's when some things are done. So we need civil society to keep up the pressure.
I don't know how she's going to.
Civil society looks like you are in bed with the organization that we will need you to criticize and put on track.
Well, the law says civil society must be on that board. That's what the law says, okay? And it even says it must be a woman. Okay,
no, we're not worried about that.
So
the point I'm making, money or something.
So the point, but it would then be the same situation.
We'll see when we get there.
If something comes up, you would expect Imani to speak about it, and you will probably accuse the Imani person of being, in bed with government.
She's your friend.
Maybe
I know her,
maybe not necessarily.
And I've worked with her on several committees.
Not
but this is the point I'm trying to make:
director.
that fighting corruption is not always about stating your opinion. That's not the only thing expected of her. Okay, so even if she has a counter opinion to what the Office of the Special Prosecutor is doing, that expectation of us that she must speak, that's just what we want. It's not what her job is.
All right, we'll see what happens. Let's do the last paper, find time and read messages and do online.
Can I just mention this last story because it talks about us?
Please, let's do that quickly,
I just feel a bit conflicted with the advocacy that Kojo is doing this morning for Madame Ofori-Kwafo.
No, this is not for Madame Ofori-Kwafo.
It's an opinion. He's entitled to it.
What I'm saying is that whoever is placed there to represent civil society will have this problem. And my position is the same, that it is not only speaking that they are supposed to do in fighting corruption. And in theory, if that Office of Special Prosecutor is doing the right thing, they will always be in line, seeking the same goal. But I just want to mention this story quickly before we go. Spew lobbies for Mahama running mate. This is
in the Daily Guide.
Yes, and this is what the Daily Guide is saying. They're saying that...
is that it? I think they call the story also from myjournline.com, so kind of we created the headline for them.
Yeah, well, what they are saying is that Spew Gabra has changed his position about being a flag bearer several times. First, he said he won't run if former President Mahama decides to run. Then he changed his mind and said he will run. Former President Mahama, can't be as good as he will be, as president. But of course, when he was here, and this, I'm quoting the story now, it says, however, on Joy TV in Accra yesterday, Mr. Spew Gabra said he will accept to be the running mate of former President John Mahama to serve Ghana and strengthen his party. It then goes on to say, he said this in an interview here and so forth. But
all right. Let's do some of your messages. We'll do my Joy Online real quick, and then we have to wrap up. This one says, oh my God, government going to Zurich to do what? To waste the taxpayers' tax. which could be used for something beneficial to the taxpayers. Why not immediately put in measures for those responsible to elect new members for the GFA, whilst the old GFA who were involved are made to face the law, as the CID is currently investigating? Oh, Ghana, Eric from Ejija having his say there. This one says, good morning. Please ask Nat this question for me. Where will a retiring teacher send his or her application to access the Tier 2 pension fund? John Akapak from Zibala. I think you're asking me a question that can easily be directed at your local chapter. So let's do that first. This one says, Ghana Education Service to refund the 10 Ghana cedis they deducted from the teacher's salary in June to them. Isaac and Somanya also sending this message. This one says, I'm always in bed with your newspaper review. Okay, you.
In bed.
Okay, I think you have some feedback for us. Berry Makuma in somewhere in Aswasi in Kumasi. I'll let the guys help me with that, but let's do myjoyonline.com before we run from here.
All right, so let's sift through. Police release suspect in Tamale Teaching Hospital raid. They call it raid. And 4 persons arrested in connection with that attack. Then we have the next story saying on Free SHS, let's not misunderstand Ken Oforiatta. I think we understood him clearly. I don't know whether there was anything. Speaking English, right? Yeah. FDA courts in the offing to adjudicate safety matter. I think
that's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I think anyway.
So we have other stories. So we have time to rethink the rising African narrative. There's an opinion.
Yeah.
And
let's see what else we have. And Whoopi Goldberg is in that illustration. I'm not
I've
sure.
even seen Mandela,
Charlize Theron,
Bill Clinton.
So Royal Bank shareholders set record straight on collapse, and this would be the first time we've heard from Royal Bank on this matter. In fact, I'd almost forgotten that Royal Bank was one of the banks that got collapsed. But of course, many workers of that bank were affected by what's happened, and so if shareholders are setting the record straight, I'm very interested in what they have to say. What else? Interior Minister justifies blowing 28,000 Ghana cedis to hire private security. Pardon? Okay. What else have we got? Isn't the Interior Minister in charge of police and all of that? And he needs private security. What's wrong with the police that he is superintending over? Anyway, KNUST converts Katanga and 5 others to mixed halls. Hey, what will happen next? The Interior Minister hires private security.
Yeah, he explains it. You know, when he appeared before the Public Accounts Committee yesterday, he explains it. Whether or not we take his explanation, that's another thing.
That's very interesting. Very soon, the Minister of Health will be flying abroad for
the Ghana Police Service to do other things. You can't have them do some things that you can have, in this case, a private security do. You know.
Oh, fine.
So we pay them 28,000.
Yeah, Charlie. Okay.
Yesterday I was listening to him and he said it's Magnum Security.
You did done well. Bank collapse. Bank of Ghana to begin civil action against offenders. That's very important. It should be done quickly.
Just by the by, he said that the police, if they were rather there at the ministry, they would not be more useful. Unlike if they were out there working better for the public. So
he's put the police out there.
Let's do BBC. I almost got convinced, but I don't know. Some way.
I would like to hear that.
Okay, so we have BBC.
All right, on the BBC, this is the main BBC page. U.S. media attack Trump's, quote, dirty war. He's been on a war path, if you like, with the media.
And just this morning, there have been 7 or 8 editorials. The Boston Globe has been leading many other things. We've had already CNN and co.
So Sudan, school children drown in Nile flood. So where these children drown, I mean, really, really sad. They were on the boat to school. And they say the place was flooded some 10 years ago. So this is how they have to transport themselves to school. Could Atletico pick Real Madrid to title? We know that La Liga begins this weekend. And with that show yesterday, people are tipping Atletico Madrid you know. Okay, Kim Jong-nam made a case to go to trial, a tour of Syria with the Russian military. There are a lot of stories on the BBC that you can check out. This is the Africa page, specifically the issue about the school children who drowned in a Nile flood. Why single Nigerian women battle to rent homes.
Battle. Those single Nigerian men averagely, is that how they look?
Shock.
That's how they look. Every landlord will want to have them
ring.
rent. I think that's the whole point.
Uganda Afrobeats MP in hospital. Ethiopian Olympic protester ready to return. All right, so that's it for what we are bringing to you by way of review. You can check these stories in detail.
It says Nigerian crocodile worshipped as a god.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
One last WhatsApp message. I'm not surprised at all when I heard that the Kandahar boys had been set free by the police for lack of evidence. The question is, what intelligence did they get which led to the picking up of these guys? Does it mean that they just picked up some people they saw on the streets or what? The Ghana police always gives us room to question their way of doing things. Very disappointing institution, Bambakia Summit in Navrongo. Well, they say they picked them up from an area where the Kandahar boys hang. Yeah, but they are not able to say if they are really Kandahar boys, first of all. And then they say, well, the hospital staff, they called up to come and identify the people they had arrested. That didn't show up, or they were not able to identify them, so they had to let them go. And then investigation still continues. What kind of investigation really? Well, I don't know. We just have to wait, I guess. Okay, so our job here is done. We thank you for all the messages. We will come back and share with you because the Ghana Education Service has issued a statement. They are announcing when schools will reopen in September. There is no date yet for the first year students, those who are going to be double tracked, remember? So we'll come back and deal with that matter properly.
I have a birthday message, and this one is from Ifwa, and Ifwa Antoinette says this one is going to her niece, Mauku Henyo, also from your mom, Paulina. You all have a great day. It's your birthday today.
All right, so thank you to Ajua Yabua Clothing for my beautiful costume. Check her out on Instagram. But the fabric is from Woodine Le Createur. We've got sports coming up. Stay with us.